Great. So good afternoon, everyone from Together Investing Club. Thank you for joining in. And as the members keep joining in, Aditya, I'm making you the host so that, sorry, I'm making you the co-host so that you can let people join in. Thank you. And as interest of time, we will just start very quickly. Before we move on, I would like to introduce you to the eminent speaker we have amongst us, Mr. Jayesh Gandhi. He is an MIM and a CFA. The idea is very simple that we try to research the markets, we try to understand of how markets are performing, where they're going. We try to put our chips on the side that we feel is just, but trying to get from someone who has dedicated their life to the markets, trying to listen from someone who's been an ex mutual fund portfolio manager and has managed millions of dollars under his click, is really thrilling and is really intriguing in the way of the depth that he can provide to a lot of us who are who are here today. So just a brief, Jayesh has worked with a lot of amazing firms. His first to start with was a stockbroking firm. Then he moved into financial investments and finally ended up as a senior research analyst at Zacks. And is the last initiative he was with Aditya Birla Fund Asset Management Company as a senior portfolio manager. He's also been an executive director for Morgan Stanley Investments. So that's Jayesh. For all of us who do not know him, I'll be sharing his LinkedIn link with all of you. And if you have any doubts or anything, probably you can just connect with him and on LinkedIn and just ask, or you can mail us any queries that you have. So that's my time. Jayesh, over to you for some brief, and then we will get into the communication mode. Over to you, Jayesh.
Well, thank you, Manuel, for the nice introduction. Good afternoon to everyone listening on the call. I guess Sunday afternoon is not an ideal time to be talking money and investing, but I guess the excitement in the market now is prompting everybody to either have an early or a late lunch and joining today. So hopefully this interaction will be useful for all. Yeah, these are very interesting times, particularly for equity investing. If you see the last 20 years, this is the third time that we've seen a financial crisis, and we are trying to come out of it. When I say financial crisis, I mean crisis in the asset market or equities and fixed income and asset markets where we park our savings. So the first one happened way back in 2001-2, when we had this tech bubble burst, and then we had the 9/11 in US, and we had to sell off there, and we recovered from there. Then we had the global financial crisis in 2007-8, and then we, asset markets recovered from that, and now we are seeing the third one. So last two centuries or last two decades, I'm sorry, I have been pretty eventful for equity investing, and as we saw this crisis last year. My thought process was that, look, by now that authorities and the global financial community or the regulatory community or the global central banks or the government has now have a playbook with them. They really know how to deal with this kind of crisis, and that is exactly what happened. Way back in June, July. As I was about to move out of my last assignment, I was telling people that, look, markets will do really well, and they have, because of the kind of stimulus and the support and the policy making that goes around, during times of crisis. So I'm really not surprised at the way the market has behaved, and my sense over the medium term is that it's going to still remain very exciting, very exciting. To be investing over the medium to long term. Really, nobody can tell you about the short term, and I'm also not going to make any guesses. I remember, in November, being in one of those, shows, online shows or panels that I was talking I end up doing. One of the my fellow panelists was very bearish on the market. He was talking about Nifty correcting by at least 10-15%. From November on, we are now up 20%. So I guess nobody really has seen the short term, and that is where I would also argue that I don't know. But what are the key things in terms of equity investing which is going for India, and what are the pros and cons, or what are the pluses and minuses? I think that is what we need to focus on. And when I look at the minuses, we know a lot of them are there, like the fact that we have this pandemic, 10, 15, or 20% of the economy is virtually a standstill. Offices have not resumed, but GDP is down 10%, so on and so forth. Jobs have been lost, people's income has got affected, etc., etc. But when I see the flip it the other side, and when see India relative to the world, I see a slightly different picture. For example, the number of cases in India are not as much. The second wave has really not hit India that much. So we are doing far better as a country in the second wave compared to the first infection. I think there is a herd immunity coming into the country, and that's why the number of cases are less. India is the vaccine capital of the world. We as a country, because of our history, have been producing 50% of the vaccines that go in the world, and we can use that opportunity and understanding and the knowledge that we have to vaccinate our population, which is what the government plans to do. And they have, I believe, have a very, very good, fantastic plan to vaccinate 20-30% of the population in the next 3-6 months, or maybe a year. The weak, the kind of stimulus which has been given in the world by the central banks of the world is bringing the necessary liquidity and the money which India requires, or the global economy requires, to kickstart the economic process once the pandemic gets over. Now, whenever the global economy has done well, India has done relatively well. So that is another tailwind which is helping India. So net, when I look at all these things, I see India at a much better situation compared to the rest of the world. And as globally India gets out of this pandemic, world gets out of this pandemic, India will actually stand to gain significantly if we can get on our feet and address some of the key concerns which are today facing the world. The world is going more and more anti-China. That is another important consideration for Indian economy and Indian manufacturing, and so on and so forth. And so I don't want to drag on, but the point I was trying to make is that over the medium term, I'm fairly bullish on the economy and the markets. Short term, one can really not say. Markets are what they are, and they will do what they have to do. So let me stop here and now throw it back to Manuel for his select questions.
Thank you, Jayesh. Well, so as it's been pointed, guys, fairly, that Jayesh is bullish on how markets are looking forward here, and not because of the nature of it, but because of how we are well positioned in terms of an economy, and as in terms of global watch guards are positioned in for the markets to keep doing better in terms of how they have supposed to be. So there are a lot of questions that I have, but I'll always for sure filter them out, and I'll ask the only relevant and the most important ones. So Jayesh, you've been a portfolio manager for a very long time. You've seen equities for almost 20, 25, 30 years now, and you've probably managed your money as well to the level of expertise and others' money. So for young people like me who are in late 20s or early 20s, and for a lot of people here who are from the Together Investing Club, we keep there is a war going between active investing and index investing. That is just buying an index and leaving it, or letting money rest there, or actively trying to find opportunities in the market and deploying capital. So Jayesh, as per your experience and as per your key, if you would want to hand over the key of wealth maximization to one of us, which amongst these two keyholes would you want us to focus on?
Well, thank you for the question, but don't you think that I'm the wrong guy to ask this question? But I'll still answer it for you.
Yeah.
First of all, starting early is very important. Uh, you mentioned you have a lot of your investors who are young. Starting early, like I said, cannot overemphasize. Very, very important. I also started very early in my career investing. First my own funds, and then managing money professionally as well afterwards. But starting early really helps. That is first part. The second part is whether doing indexing or the fund management. Again, my profession is fund management, so I will be biased. But keeping my bias aside, I would say indexing is also not a bad choice. Look, what has happened in the last few years, or last 5, 6 years in particular, is that the indices which were very poorly managed and poorly constructed earlier on, that has changed. Now indices are very, very nicely and very quickly nicely managed. That means index itself is well constructed. For example, our Nifty 50 index is actually doing better than Warren Buffett's portfolio. The returns of Nifty 50 are better than Warren Buffett's portfolio. That was the case in 2018. Then last 2 years, 19, we had a bad market, and so probably our returns went down. But again, we have caught up. So think about it. If you are investing in Nifty 50 index, you've actually outpaced Warren Buffett, which is incredible. So the point is that investing directly in ETF, which is low cost, nice way of participating in equity market, is also not a bad choice. Again, it all depends on how actively you want to monitor what you're doing, or how actively involved you are in the whole process. If you can select funds nicely, or you can take help from some advisors and select funds and invest in them, then there are fairly decent number of good quality mutual funds which you can invest in and piggy bank in. I used to manage one of those good ones. At least I believe that a few months ago. But if you don't want to do that and you want a low cost model, indexing is also an excellent choice. Around 20% of Indian funds are index funds. Indexing is catching up very fast in India, and globally around 40 to 50% money goes into indexing. And I think indexing is here to stay, and that's an excellent low cost way of participating in equity markets. So both can work depending on how you want to do it.
Great, thank you. So to sum that up, it depends on how much hard work and how much active management do you actually want to put into.
Let me give you another quote, very nice quote that I remember Warren Buffett made in May of 2020, that is last year, when somebody on CNBC asked him that, look, with the pandemic, the global markets have corrected, what is the best way of participating? And he said, buy S&P 500.
S&P 500.
So that works everywhere, including in India.
Great, thank you, sir, for that part of it. The other thing is, once we have chosen active portfolio management or once we've chosen to invest, a lot of Indians are basically, I think I have seen, are polarized towards excessive diversification. So the stigma around diversification, what's your take on it? Does one really need to over diversify, or optimum? What is optimum diversification? And does diversification actually is it actually proportional to risk reduction?
So first of all, I don't know what is optimal diversification. I think this is a utopian concept. I have never understood in the 20 years that I've been investing. See, again, let's understand. Investing is being done, and you do it for meeting certain objectives in life, right? That's the reason why you're investing, right? You're investing for your own lifestyle, or your own basic needs, or future of your own self, retirement, or a child's education. I mean, it's like multiple objectives. I think the good way of looking at investments would be to tailor it to what you want to use it for. So a good example, and again, I can take only my example because I know only my life, so I don't want to take others' example. But way back in 98, 99, when I was contemplating going to the US for the education, I realized that the cost of education is horrendously high overseas. So, and by that time I had my son who was 2 years old. So I actually invested for my son's foreign education way back in 2099, 2000. And at that time, there were no mutual funds. I mean, there were hardly any mutual funds. So I had to buy an insurance policy. But that has worked. I mean, the returns are much lower, much lower than what mutual funds would have given me. But I had to do that because there was nothing else available at that time. I guess the situations now change. But the reason I give you this example is that you have to tailor make your investments to the need rather than think about diversification, etc., etc. Now, to answer your specific question, what do you over diversify? I agree. You should not over diversify. People, end up buying 10, 15 mutual funds. There's no need for that. You can buy at least, 3, 4, 5 good ones, monitor the performance over a period of time. And my sense is look at 3, 5 years at least. Okay, and of good quality, companies. Okay, or if you're doing index, look at the combination of indices which are available. 80%, 75, 80% is large cap. So you should proportionally allocate your money also to indexes or indices in that manner. Okay. Not putting all the eggs in one basket. Maybe you can have multi-assets like fixed income, some hybrid funds, some fixed income, some commodities if you have the knowledge and the interest, so on and so forth. And now we have international funds as well. So I guess you can have some bit of diversification so that you are not putting all eggs in one basket. But at the end of the day, will diversification reduce risk totally? No. Think about it, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when the pandemic struck, everything was down.
And now everything is up.
so that's really not going to change much, because at the end of the day, all these are financial products, right? But having said that, over the medium to long term, a good diversified portfolio will definitely help you. Don't have a lot of it, but do have some mix.
Great. Thank you, Jay sir. So over diversifying will not help, but should be diversified to an extent. Well, thank you so much. So the next question is a question that probably everyone who ventures into equities as a fundamental guy or as a technical guy or as an investor has, and that is how can a well-defined research process? First is, how should I set up a well-defined research process if I want to, and does it actually serve an investor? Because a lot of time we see a war between people who try to chase price action versus people who actually do the research and want to invest. So is there a way of defined research process, and if there is, does it actually serve an investor?
No, so there are not one, multiple very well-defined templates, research processes. My only point of submission here is that it is for a individual investor, unless he devotes full time into it, it's going to be very difficult. See, investing is very simple, but it is at the same time difficult to implement. It is simple in the sense it is not rocket science. But having said that, the art itself is difficult to understand, and once understand and gain expertise on, and then implement the same your expertise into real action in the markets. So it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years of learnings, experience, counts here a lot. And so I'm not dissuading people from doing it on their own, but if they decide to do it on their own, then they have to devote full time to it. So it is simple, it is easy, but it does take a lot of discipline and hard work to do it. There are multiple ways in which you can do it. For example, there are some people who have a, for example, let me give an example of somebody who has a background in economics. He can do a top-down analysis of the market and then take his call on whether he wants to be in equity, fixed income, commodities, etc., and or be in India or international markets, whatever. And then further do top-down sector analysis and decide the sector. So that is one way of doing it. The second way of doing it is bottom-up. I don't care about the world. I look at the company, I do the research, I like the company, a business model. bank. I like the company, I like the management, I track the company, track the management, and I invest in that company for long term. So some people will do a combination of both. Some people can do sector allocation, do thematics. Okay, now a classic case now is this ESG investing. People like that concept a lot, and then they start investing in funds which are ESG focused on ESG because that is the concept that will work for next few years, etc. So there is not one. There is multiple ways in which you can, as people say, skin the cat. Right? There's no one process. What works for you or what will work for you will depend on your temperament, your basic education, and at the same time, how much time you want to devote to the entire process. But let me add this. This is not rocket science. It is simple, but it is hard work. But anybody can do it. So let me say that if you have the time and energy, and if you want to focus on it, it's something that you can go for it.
Great. Thank you. So it does serve investors, guys. Building and executing a research process does help investors in the long run. That's what Jayesh wants to emphasize on. Moving to the most important question that is probably there in today's conversation and that a lot of us have in our hearts. That is how to execute multi-asset strategies first. And a follow-up question is it worth exploring offshore funds and other economies? Because, we're now opening up financial services where an Indian investor can invest globally through different funds or directly in different equities or other asset classes globally. So first is, how do we execute multi-asset strategies, and how do, if need be, or is it worth exploring? Is it worth exploring offshore funds as well?
So let me answer the second question first. A resounding yes. Okay. Investing. So let me answer the second part first. Investing in other economies and other parts of the world is something that is available to Indian investors now in the last few years. Yes. And that was something which was a missing piece. If you see developed economies like US and other parts of the world, Europe as well, Australia, even advanced economies in Asia like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, etc. Their investors very regularly, and not only institutional investors, retail investors, HNIs, smart investors regularly invest in internationally from those economies as well. It is great that we also now have the opportunity as Indian investors to invest internationally and participate in some of the whatever growth companies, tech companies, whatever you call it, value companies, whatever be the case, and participate in the investment process or participate in gains there as well. I know this sounds kind of not so national or anti-national. Look, please understand, and this is what I tell to students also. The first promise as an investor I make to myself, that as an investor we have to work towards making decent returns. Now, if those returns are coming from international markets, then I might as well get some of it. I know Atmanirbhar Bharat is important, but more important is my own financial health and financial objectives, right? So, and investing, not investing in India and investing international should not be seen as anti-national. I mean, look, global investors are investing in India. Similarly, Indian investors can invest or should invest globally, and that is what is the basic nature of investing, so that you don't put your eggs, like you said, in one basket and diversify into other economies. Why would you not want to buy good quality Nasdaq listed technology stocks which are riding today? Why would you not want to buy? And now with so many other alternatives available, you have ETFs, Nasdaq ETF, you have S&P ETF. You can directly buy stocks. Back in my earlier organization, we used to buy good quality dividend stocks of international companies in our funds, in our dividend yield funds. We had an opportunity to do some allocation into international funds, and we used to do it in our funds as well. So even fund managers, I mean, professional fund managers, mutual funds are doing it. Why shouldn't Indian investors be deprived of it? I don't see any reason why you should not. The only caveat here is that, which is the golden rule in investing, right? Investing what you know and understand. So gain some knowledge, gain some understanding. If you don't have the time for it, do indexing. But international diversification or international investing is something that one should look for and should do it if gain some understanding and do it. So that's my first point. Now, typically investors ask me how much you should allocate. Now, globally, people do, and I've worked abroad as well. I've seen people, put at least 30, 40%, some people even 50% in international emerging markets from US, etc. Here we are not used to that large allocation. You do 5, 7%, 10%, which is fine. You start small, and then as you gain confidence, more and more confidence, you can build it. But if you have the time and energy to do research of global indices and global companies, etc., you should do it. Why you should be present to the Indian economy as an investor? I don't see any logic to that. So that's the first part. Your second, the second part. The first question was on how to. Sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry, it's my laptop.
Yeah. So no, the first question on how to do multi-asset investing.
Multi-asset strategies.
Right. So multi-asset is something which I have very strong positive bias towards. In fact, one of the first multi-asset funds in India, we tried to launch it. We launched it in Morgan Stanley way back in 2011. Unfortunately, we were much ahead of the time, and the fund did not really collect that much EUM. But nevertheless, recently I've seen some other mutual funds also do it very successfully. Collected fairly decent interest in the investors. I think that is one of the ways in which you can do it. That invest in a fund which is doing multi-asset. So, as an asset classes, say 5 years ago or 10 years ago, Indian investors typically had only fixed income and equities. So you had only hybrid funds. But now what you have is at least 2 asset classes got added. One is gold or commodities, and the fourth one is international equities or international investing. So multi-asset, now you have 4 or 5 choices within your fund. Now you can do it directly through a mutual fund, or you can do it on your own through buying ETFs. Say make a Excel sheet, put a certain proportion in each of these asset classes, say equity, fixed income, gold, international equities, and real estate. Okay, and put a percentage, and then allocate to, and you can just buy ETFs. You don't even have to research the stocks and the markets. Just buy ETFs. And do it. And my sense is that will over a period of time also deliver decent capital appreciation and returns to your overall investment strategy. And more importantly, it will reduce the risk significantly, because think about it. In 2018 and 19, the Indian economy was suffering. All the year emerging markets are suffering, but the global economy and the developed world was doing very well. You could have participated in that. By buying international equities. So international diversification, being gold as an asset class, has now become very important as the store of value. With what the global central banks are doing to save their economies, they're pumping money. The value of the dollar, value of the currency is going down. So gold can become important. Commodities can become important source of asset classes. Now these commodity exchanges have also now come under SEBI. Over a period of time, my sense is that SEBI will allow mutual funds and other institutional investors, banks, etc., also to invest, and then products will start coming out on investing in commodities as well. So those can also be very important asset class that investors can look at. So the great news here is that we have now multiple choices. Of course, that doesn't solve the problem of which to choose.
Of course, I mean, one will have to do his own research before venturing into an asset class, of course.
Correct.
Great. So offshore funds is the green light. Offshore funds is a big yes. What Jayesh is trying to tell everyone is, or all of us, is that treat world as one marketplace, and wherever you're able to skim best returns out of, just invest in those areas. But then again, for offshore funds or offshore investing, we will have to have the time, and we will have to put the effort to research those particular economies as well. So thank you, Jayesh, for that part. And also multi-asset strategies is a big go, because probably we all come with different horizons and different interest yield that we're looking forward to. So multi-asset strategies will probably help a lot of us in meeting our goals with discipline and with time. So Jayesh, moving towards the end of the conversation, I have 2 more questions from me under the sleeve. The first is, what is your outlook for India? So now that we've talked a little global, what is the outlook for India? What should an Indian investor or an investor in India expect? A modest investor or an average investor and an aggressive investor. So what should we look 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line from Indian equities?
Okay, so I heard two things. One is various types of investors. And my point is that it doesn't matter what type of investor you are. It is the returns will depend on what the economy and the market does, right?
Exactly.
So you may be conservative, but that doesn't help you in any way. It will help in any way, or you may be aggressive, but that will also not help. I guess short term, like I mentioned earlier. Uh, very difficult for anybody to make a guess. Most pundits go wrong, so short term predicting is like the Australians predicting the outcome of the cricket series, right? Where they ruled out India and thought India will lose without Virat Kohli. So that is how difficult it is. Having said that, again, let me come back to what are the pros and cons? What are the key drivers which could see equities delivering again a double-digit kind of return this year and for next 3 years? And what are the cons? So of course the cons we know about it, that look, economy is in shambles. GDP go down -10%. Large number of businesses gone shut. We don't know when the pandemic will end. So on and so forth. So those are the risks which are there and which are known. But on the positive side, as I was explaining, India is in very strong footing in terms of the pandemic. I think the spread is more or less under control. Now I'm touching wood. I hope we can spend next few months without the second wave really hitting us much. We see the infections are really not rising in India. And compared to the developed world and other parts of the world. Also the fact that the global liquidity, as people say, put it nowadays, that there's only one central bank in the world, which is the US Fed, and that Fed, or the central bank of the world, has pumped so much money that it will not only keep US afloat, but it will also keep the EMs afloat. In the last 1 year, India has received over $120 billion in foreign currency. We are one of the largest recipients, in fact, more than what China or other Asian countries have got. So by and large, the global investing community is looking positively to India. Plus the fact that our economy can recover much faster because of the vaccination, that the plan that the government has. I think it's a very credible, excellent plan. Plus the fact that there is so much anti-India, anti-China happening, which is an opportunity indirectly for us, because we can now position our economy and our companies to take up advantage and increase our global market share. So net, from a 3-year view, I am fairly positive on the economy and on the markets. I think markets can deliver double-digit returns even from these high levels. Now, will this be a straight line up? No. Let me be very honest here. It will never be. So at the beginning of the year, somebody gave me a very interesting table. It says the high and lows every year of the Nifty 50 since last 20 years. And the difference between high and low every year was 30 to 40% difference. That means you take the high point and the low point of Nifty 50 every year for the last 20 years. The difference was 35 to 40% average. In last year, it was 85%. Now think about it. That means what? That, and if beginning of the year was the midpoint, then you could go down 15% or go up 15%, or go down 20%. So you would definitely have these corrections these concerns coming up, and that will give opportunities. Now, if you are a tactical investor and you want to take this opportunity, please go ahead and do it. A lot of people come and ask me, should I sell some? I said, yeah, please go ahead and do it. Sell 15, 20, 30% of your this and book profit. The question that I ask those people is that when the market was around 30%, did you buy? When you're doing tactical investing, then you have to be very disciplined also about it. See, again, coming back to the same thing. Investing is simple. It is not rocket science, but it is very hard to implement. You have to be very strong in your conviction, in your ideas of what you want to do, and be very strict about when to implement, how to implement. Then and only then will you be able to participate. I know so many people who were really bearish on the market in November, October, November, and thereabout. Market is up 20%. Now what will happen? If you are out, can you now buy 20% higher? And then you miss the boat.
There's the bus, of course.
Right. So having said that, I'm not saying for that look, markets will not go down. They will go down. They will correct. If you are smart and tactical, you can participate in the ups and downs. Go ahead and do it. Your call. Otherwise, very simple. Do SIP. Simple and most easiest way of investing. There's another strategy. Somebody said that, look, how do I do it? I said, look, sell 50% of your holdings, book profit, and do SIP. Simple as that. You book profit, and at the same time you are getting in easy. Now that assumes that market will correct. If it doesn't correct, then you keep on buying at high level. So for short term, I think there is no answer. I mean, let me put it this way. From medium to long term, I'm fairly bullish on the global economy and Indian economy. I think equities can, as a class, can give decent returns, and we have an opportunity to participate.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jayesh, for that insight. And guys, short term, of course, nobody can be bang on, right? But medium to long term is the time frame that we should look as investors, or we should look at. And of course, volatility is here, and it will always be here, depending on how the fear and greed play out, probably. So Jayesh, we already have a question in the chat box. So before I go to that, so for those of us who are attending live and not waiting for the recorded one, so for those who are here, you can unmute, or you can just put your question in the chat box. Before that, Jayesh, there is a question in the chat box. Utsav is trying to know if when we're talking about investing in global economies, is there a way we can invest in Eastern economies as well? Because a lot of funds are focused on US, or there are a lot of funds on US. But if I want to invest in Singapore, South Korea, Vietnam, do we have any funds, or do we have any way of exposure there?
So far, I haven't seen any credible basket of funds. But having said that, if you invest in an international ETF, EM ETF, emerging market ETF, India weightage in that is only 9%, 10%. But that will have 20% China. I don't remember Malaysia's, but it will definitely have Hong Kong, which is around 10%. Korea, something like 16, 17%, and Taiwan as well. So an emerging market ETF, the Asian emerging market ETF, should or a portfolio should do the trick for you.
Great. So Utsav, I hope that answers the questions. There are a couple of global ETFs that can give us a sprinkle of Eastern economies, but there is no such fund that even I have come across, except for, I think Edelweiss has a South China fund, and I think that's too polarized for me to be investing in it. Of course, I'm not invested in it, but there are a lot of funds that we might look forward to, but as of now, there are no funds that give us that kind of exposure that we're looking for. Great, guys.
Just let me correct you. It is not global funds. So the terminology has to be right. Global funds are funds that invest across the globe, all the countries, including developed world and emerging world. You have to look for an EM fund, emerging market fund.
Emerging market funds.
Yeah. So emerging market fund or emerging market ETFs. Particularly Asian emerging market fund and Asian emerging market ETF will do the trick. And my sense is that some of these foreign banks or foreign houses or houses which have foreign international connections should have international emerging market funds for you to invest.
Great. Thank you, Jayesh. So emerging market funds. Will be better. Great. So guys, any other questions from any of the other participants that are out here? Karan, Gagan, any questions from your end?
I guess I answered everything.
I guess that too. Well, we had asked for questions earlier as well. Those were the questions that I asked. Well, keeping the time, respecting the time here. Jayesh, thank you so much for coming over to Together Investing Club. We look forward to more interactions with you in future as well. And if we have any questions that we get from the members, we will just mail them to you. And we hope you have the time, you take out time to just and revert to them in a brief.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for hosting me, and hopefully my comments will help. Please feel free to connect, and happy investing.
Thank you. Happy investing to everyone. Thank you, Jayesh, for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Bye.